So, Phil, tell me about the concept of this boat.
Well, I mean, the original inspiration for Balanced Catamarans happened to me off of Palm Beach. I was out sea trialing a 56-foot production catamaran, and it was 17 knots of wind, and I couldn't go more than 7 knots. And then I tried to bring it up and sail to wind, and I couldn't get it to point higher than 55 degrees. And I was driving the boat back in through Palm Beach, and I said to myself, we've lost the balance. And it just came to me. And I said, I've been doing this for so long. I really want to do my own boats. I want to build boats that I believe in, or like really nice cruising boats for people, but that aren't extreme racing boats, but are also not extreme, sort of charter type cats. That I want to design a boat that was almost as comfortable as a charter cat, and almost as fast as a racing, cat, but something just a little bit in between. And that's the concept of balance. And then this particular boat, the 526, when you start trying to get a boat to sail at these kinds of speeds, we really wanted it to sail at like 10 to 12 knots. You have to get builders that really know how to build this kind of boat. They have to be built with high-tech materials, very light, expensive materials, and high labor hours. So I was kind of casting about trying to find some builders. And then I came to South Africa, and I was introduced to Johnny. I met his brother at the Annapolis Boat Show several years ago, and I was very impressed with what they had done. I said, well, these guys really know how to build a boat. And then it led to a lot of discussions. And then we hired Anton Dutoy. Johnny and I worked together on the design of the boat with Anton, and it was a real process. I mean, they came to the Annapolis show, it was about, I think it was 3 years ago, and we just woke up every morning for a couple hours and talked about what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it. And we looked at other boats and talked about the things that we liked and didn't like. And we spent a long time in the design process because my experience in boat building is that after you tool it, it's really hard to go back. You really don't want to mess up. And so we spent really lots of time, and it's been a fantastic partnership working with these guys. And we've only had a chance to sail the boat the last 3 or 4 days. We're just dialing it in, so to speak. But already we can tell that we've achieved our objective. And the one thing I would say is that I learned a lot selling all the used cats, that everybody talks a great game about performance, but the typical person that has a lot of money to spend and wants to go live on a boat, they want aircon, they want generator, they want all the modern satellite communications, they want washers and dryers, they want dive compressors, they want decent sized tenders, they want ice makers, they want, as in this boat, 2 freezers, 2 fridges, and all that stuff really adds up. The weight really adds up. This boat, for example, has a 9 kW generator and 36,000 BTUs of air. This boat can be chilled, at anchor, whatever, and because that's what the customer wanted. And yet, even though it's got all those comfort amenities, as you'll see today when we sell, she still likes to just dial along. And so, yeah, we're really, pleased. But it took a lot of work on Johnny's part, because these doors, for example, these are composite. He made this himself. The davits are all carbon. That's a carbon post over there. The masts for the electronic equipment are carbon. Everywhere he went, he was trying to shave weight, because he knew that was going to be critical to making this boat still perform.
Well, Jonathan, this is probably a good time to pivot to you then and ask, how is this boat built then to be able to carry that kind of payload that Phil's described, and also attain those speeds sort of day in, day out in cruising mode transoceanic?
Well, I think as Phil says, to keep the boat light. So when you're making it, we have the foam sandwich construction. The hulls are carrying 25mm core, which is pretty substantial, and a fairly light outer skin, but still strong enough to bump the hull, if you bump the dock and stuff like that. And then inside we have a little bit lighter layer, so you don't have a balanced laminate, but it is enough interior to keep it light. So every move you make is light. The whole front beam is reinforced carbon, where the front bar sits on the mast beam, there's a lot of carbon at places where you need to have carbon to keep it light.
And how about otherwise? What fibers are you using, and what resins are you using?
Yeah, the whole boat is epoxy. We
Mhm.
use epoxies and stuff, and e-glass combined with carbon reinforcing. It's kind of
So
the
carbon
root
where the loads require.
all the loads, yeah.
require
And the
that.
chain plates are carbon fiber. We have a carbon fiber front bar longeron. So wherever we can use carbon, trying to keep the price down and trying to keep it light.
And I understand it's a wet preg layup. Can you describe how that works?
Well, the wet preg is really sort of the old way that we've always built, because I come from a Hobie background and built Hobie cats for many years. And we used to hand laminate them like we built surfboards, and the guys that built Hobies did the same method as building a surfboard. And I've carried that through. We've done the wet laminate. As long as one watches the resin content, you know, you weigh the glass and the glass 1:1 or 1:1.2 resin ratios, you're going to kind of come out with the right combination of what you need. We do a lot of bagging as well. On a lot of the bulkheads and that, we have a table and we vacuum bag all those with peel ply and everything, keeping the resin content right down. Some of the bigger items we do just a wet laminate right through, then we bag the core and then we laminate again. If you just watch your resins and stuff, you get a pretty good laminate.
Yeah.
Maybe if you did the infusion way, sometimes it's a lot cleaner and neater because you set up the whole thing and then you infuse resin through it. But it's hard to say where we're going with that, because you've got to fill up all the foam core with resin, because you've got to get the resin to go through the foam core to pick up the other laminates on the other side. So that's got to fill up with resin. So if you did a normal bag, you wouldn't do that. You'd speed it on, you'd give the resin a bit of a hot coat, and whoop, you go down. So you got to be neat and clean to get it right.
So this is giving you a good stiff, light structure for the kinds of speeds.
Yeah,
The boats. It's a daggerboard boat.
that's right.
So maybe Phil, could you describe how the owner intends to use this boat? What kind of sailing are they going to be doing?
Well, he loves to sail in the Bahamas, and he likes to fish. So he's going to be doing.
Bahamas, so that's a shallow draft.
He wants
place.
He wants a very shallow draft boat, and he also has some property in Belize, and he likes to go out to the reefs in Belize. And once again, the shallow draft is very important to him. And he asked Johnny to take the aft cockpit seat whole cavity under there and insulate it, and then he has an ice flaker down here for fishing, and it spits up ice and fills up that whole back thing into an ice locker for his fishing, which is really pretty cool, you know.
Yeah.
Catamarans actually are great for fishing because you're sailing along at about trolling speed, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I'd like to hope that Jeffrey will sail her into the South Pacific, you know, and really, you know, maybe circumnavigate on a boat sometime. That'd be my dream, is to see him do that. Yeah.
And will he typically will he cruise with 2 people aboard or 4 people aboard?
Well, he'll have his daughters will visit him from time to time, and he'll, you know, travel with his significant other. And right now he has a captain and crew because he just got the boat, and sort of they're here to deliver the boat. The boat will be leaving fairly soon for the United States, and I think he wants the boat to be kept in really beautiful shape. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Interestingly, this is a 52-foot boat that it's got one owner's hull
Yes.
over on this side. So there's just you know, the sort of queen berth actually forward on
Yeah.
that side, and then a massive shower
yeah.
and headspace. So the owner all lives there. This is not a 52-foot boat where you've tried to pack in you know,
No.
4 different cabins and that sort of thing. It's really optimized for shorthanded.
Yeah, it is. I
Living
mean, we
aboard.
could do it in a 4-cabin version. We could mimic the non-owner hull. So you'd have a toilet, shower, amidships in both, right? But boy, for an owner, I mean, the shower in the boat is so big, and he has all the cabinetry and storage, you know, down the center. And, you know, you see a lot of people these days that want an owner version, you know, boat. The the buyer for the number 3 is here from America and looking at this boat and making final decisions. And he and his wife are going to be selling the boat. The buyer of the number 2 is a Hong Kong sailboat racer, and he's going to be cruising on the boat with his wife, just the 2 of them, you know. So I think it's going to vary.
So it's really a short-handed boat.
It can be, yeah. It should be. You know, we're still ironing out some things, as you always do. This particular boat has a in-boom furling system that was from Southern Spars, and we're just trying to get that all figured out, like exactly how to use it. But we've only sailed the boat a couple of days, and I think we'll of course we'll get it figured out. It has 2 electric furlers on the boat, so Dr. Phillips ordered the Screecher furler is hydraulic, and then he's got a Reckman electric furler there. And I'll tell you, those head sails come in quick, huh?
Yeah, they really fly. It's like a racing boat, you know. It's just really quick.
Yeah.
You got to be sharp. I mean, you must let go because she's going.
Yeah, you'll see today. It
really,
just
really
goes,
quick.
So you're anticipating cruising speeds of sort of 10 to 12 knots.
Yeah.
And how about
so,
when
9 to 12,
when you really want to push it?
Oh well, I mean,
what do you expect?
I think, you know, just from sailing the boat, my sense is that, you know, we could easily exceed 20. But I think if Johnny and I were on the boat and we had 15 to 18 knot breezes and we were sailing the boat, I think we'd be doing 15, 16.
Oh yeah, quite easy.
Easy, yeah, no problem at all. The Screecher, you know, with the big Screecher out, yesterday we were doing wind speed quite often in very light air. And it's surprising to us really, because this boat probably has more equipment on it than any boat, you know, that we can't imagine really. And it's got so much equipment on it. So I think we've proven that our baby can carry payload, which is really important, you know. We're John and I, we're just kind of excited to sail the boat. We haven't had a chance to sail it. It's been, you know, 2.5, 3 years in the making, right? So it's just time to really enjoy it and go sailing. And we're looking forward to going sailing with you today, actually.
Jonathan, you've described the layup for the hull and the basic construction. How about the rest of the fit out and the electrical installations, plumbing, all those systems? Is that all done in-house at your yard, or do you have contractors that you work with?
It's done in the yard, but we have contractors that come in. We have Struan, who's been with us for a couple of years now, and he works closely with the owners in the beginning. Right? So a lot of it is planned well in advance, like the boats that are in the factory right now. You're planning it. If you don't plan it, you can really end up in trouble. So how much plumbing does he want? How much power does he want? You know, we have an in-house carpenter guy now, and he's done all this work, which is his first time. So this is what he can do for the first time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very light. You'll see that our furniture is extremely light.
And then we're slowly ramping the business up. We've got some young guys coming in. We're all getting on a little bit.
Yep.
And they are doing some great work. Some of this Korean work that you see here is done by a young guy, 26 years old. He's been in the business sort of from a young kid, 7 years already. And we're going forward now. You know, it's been a challenge. We've got this one out. It's been difficult, but we've been working our way through stuff. Some stuff we've built and then when none of it doesn't work, I've actually chopped it out. But at the end result, it's come good.
So Jonathan, we talked a little earlier about the layup of the hull and deck and the basic structure of the boat. But then I think there's also places I've seen through the boat where you've really worked at keeping weight out of furniture and doors and things like that. How do you do that?
Well, that's all veneered, and what we do is we get it veneered onto a cardboard, a honeycomb, and that's how we get the panels brought in, like you get plywood and stuff, so it's coming in panels. And then what we do is we'll cut the shape out of that, and then what's got to be very, very important, you have to seal all the edges. So as long as you don't put the fire hose on it, but it's sealed. As long as you've sealed everything, painted it, you're fine, you know. And then a lot of the panels and small interior bulkheads are foam core, vacuumed either side on the table, and that I also give to my guys to work with. So I'll be supplying them a pile of vacuum 15mm foam core with 450 glass either side. and they will cut out from there, and they're nice and straight and flat. So there's very little fairing that goes onto that. You probably just spray a high bolt on there. And that's sort of how one works all the way through. The floors are vacuum bagged on a table in one shot. The top glass, the foam, everything all in one go. So that keeps the weight down. It's something that's done worldwide, but just to do it neatly and keep it down, is great.
So Phil, you've been thinking about this idea, sort of the
Yeah.
large concept of this for a long time. How did you come to South Africa in general and Nexus Yachts in particular to actually do the build?
Well, Johnny and I have an old history. He built the boats for the Hobie Cat World Championships at Plettenberg Bay in 1979, and I was just a teenager, and I came down here and I won those worlds. So he built the boats that I raced on.
Okay.
And we've known.
That's a nice long relationship.
Yeah. So it's a lot of Hobie. We're really a lot of Hobie guys.
All of it.
And we're kind of, Johnny, as you probably know, is a really top surfer. He was a professional surfer for years, and I was a surfer. There's kind of a Johnny and Roger and the guys at the factory. We kind of share a love of the water and the sea, and we're kind of sailor surfer guys. So but his building is pretty legendary in South Africa. I mean, he's built some really big high-end monohulls. What was the one that you did for?
We did Tokalos, which was for Little Ingerval. It was an 80-foot maxi. It was the famous broomstick that won the Cape de Rio race. And they had a second hull around here. And some friends of mine, Greg Prescott, who's living in New Zealand, we got together and a bunch of guys put this thing together. And we did the Rio race on it really fast. And then went back to, I think it ended up in Australia, did the Sydney Hobart race. That was the beginning of the big boat business for me, for many years.
When was that?
Just prior 2000, say, that type of time of the year,
Mm-hmm.
And but prior to that, I'd built surfboards and canopies and all the Hobies for 10, 12 years. I built all the first Hobies with my uncle John Whitmore. That's how I got involved with it. He's also a legend in his own. And that's the path I went, and there was surfing, windsurfing. I worked for F2, building prototypes. So I've had a lot of fun. I did a lot of work on the Volvo ocean boats when they first came and had to be repaired right here in this harbour. So you learn a lot from that. You just steer with your eyes. You learn all the time. You never stop learning. Don't think you've ever a prima donna because somebody's got another method. And it's great to share. If I get stuck in anything in the project, I've got so many friends that I phone in any boat yard. Hey, what's happening here? How do we? Or they phone me. So I've always been like that. Even when I worked for Voyage Yachts, I would talk to the guys at Robinson and Kane. People couldn't believe it, but I would be talking to their PR person if it had to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be talking to the designers and sharing information, and I think it's great for the whole industry to share. We're all using the same materials. It's just how you use it.
Yeah.
And people have looked at this boat and they're just shaking their head and they're just congratulating. I'm not going to say me. I have to say my team.
Yeah.
I've told them a lot. When somebody says, "Well done, Jonathan," it's not me. It's you guys. It's all of us. I'm guiding you. You're helping me, which has been great.
Nice.
Yeah, they have a
Philly,
big family. Yeah.
So you've had experience building boats in Brazil and in China, and here now.
Yeah.
What particularly? What can you say about sort of South African builds and
Well,
working here in relation to other places in the world?
Yeah. Well, there's the big advantage of South Africa over Brazil is the procurement is much better. Cape Town has such a yacht building facility that these guys can get what they need. We've got the Harkin guys, the spar makers. Southern Spars came here to set up the rig. Ullman Sails made the sails. The procurement in South Africa is excellent. And in addition to that, in South Africa you have this core of guys Johnny knows. They're just like core South African build guys,
Oh
right?
yeah.
There's
And
quite a
th-
culture here. For
There's
sure.
a culture, and as you know, I mean, there we had a succession of 3 different builders here that built the gunboat. So you had Uwe Jasperson, and he's good friends with Uwe. Uwe made our carbon parts. You had Phil Harvey that used to make boats for gunboat. You had, and then who did? Yeah, and then
Duncan Ross.
yeah. So there were a bunch of guys, and this is kind of built like that. That type of build. And I was going to comment about another way we've lightened the boat is that you'll see when you go outside. Jonathan has this avoid stainless fetish. Okay, so if you go outside, the steps, the railings, the hand railings on the stern, he made those out of composite. There's no stainless there. The posts are carbon posts, and the stanchions are carbon glass. There's very little stainless on the boat. All the posts are composite, and that really adds up.
How about under the water? Are you using metal through hull fittings?
No,
Are you
that's
using,
all that
composite
plastic is
Marilon?
Marilon stuff, and
Yeah.
that coming through. It's all flush mounted to the hull,
Mhm.
so we had to
So you're
put a
really
bit of
keeping
e-glass and
metals out as much
yeah,
as
it's very
possible.
much it's all
Yeah.
out of
But
it.
there
All
are
the-
some things that we're doing that are not lighter, but we're doing because we think it's better. For example, the glass windows.
Mhm.
Glass windows are heavier than Lexan windows or plastic windows.
But in the concept of this boat, the visibility is a fundamental
it's important
component.
for the visibility. It's also important for the longevity, the leakage. When I sell so many used boats, and I can't tell you, after 5-6 years, most of these used boats with Lexan, either A, it's crazed and you can't even see through it, or B, it's leaking and distorted and you have to replace it.
And that's because the materials are moving
Yeah,
at
they're
different.
moving, and it's harder to seal. And you go to replace the windows in the salon in the Catamaran in the United States, and it's easily $10,000-$15,000. And so that's a heavier material, but I think it's a much better material. For this kind of application. Getting back to China, the other huge difference is that in China, Lee, who builds our boats, he went to university of boat building, right? And his English is pretty darn good. But Lee isn't like a lifetime sailor.
Mhm.
So when I'm communicating something to Lee, it takes me a lot longer.
So it's 2 translations.
It takes a lot longer.
English to Chinese, and also
Lee is
to non-sailor.
gonna do exactly what he's told to do. Okay?
Mhm.
Jonathan isn't gonna do exactly what he's told to do, because if he thinks something's stupid, he's gonna let me know about it right away. Because he's a
Yeah.
sailor, and
Mhm.
he intuitively knows. So the China project took us longer to come to fruition and to get things quite the way we want because of the communication issue. In Brazil, we had a French builder who was very, very good, Philippe Bouvreau. And that was fine, but the procurement was terrible in Brazil. Everything had to be shipped in and then trucked, and to build a boat, we pretty much had to order everything 6 months out of the start of the build and sort of lock it in a locker, and then so you have all this material that's costly and it's just sitting there, which isn't very efficient. And then you have to purchase it, way out. So in every respect, this has been, really just this type of boat. This is the perfect place to build it, and you're going to go to St. Francis. You'll see where these guys are operating. It's a very small, rural community where the guys can live a nice lifestyle. The housing isn't crazy, nuts expensive. They have a very large factory, and they can expand if they want without, controlling overheads is obviously really critical. And a boat like this is high labor hours. I mean, have you calculated the labor hours?
It's frightening when I just talk to the electricians and stuff, because they're subcontractors and they tell me how many hours they've done. I don't want to know how many hours I've done.
Mhm.
I could take a couple of months holiday
Yep.
all the time.
Yeah.
But we are working slowly towards that. It's very difficult to work it out when you're designing it and sort of mocking it up and
I
then
think there's a
chopping
difference
it down.
too between the first boat and then the subsequent
second,
ones.
Yeah, it's going to be. So,
Yeah.
so that's when we really, I speak to the guys, as I said earlier, in the industry, and Robinson and Kane, and the guy that works and designs there is a really good friend of mine, and he says, John, only after the 5th boat do we know kind of where we're going. So they build them so fast, but we're a little different. So we will iron it out, and we will see where we're going, and
in terms of labor hours.
Labor hours.
Yeah, it makes it
we
difficult.
need to know.
Yeah, we really need to know.
We need to know where we're going to.
But it's got to be in excess of 30,000, 30,000
quite
labor
easily,
hours.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's why, the reality is, you can't really build a high labor hour product in the United States. I don't think. I mean, I thought about it.
Europe even, yeah.
And in Europe, well, in Europe, the big production builders get away with it because they build their boats so fast.
That's the thing. They're not putting a lot of labor hours.
And the reality is that you can sort of pull that off if you have the productions of a Lagoon or a Fountaine Peugeot, right? Because you have that much volume. But the problem, my experience with those kinds of builders is they start out designing their boats for charter because they must, because 60-70% of their boats are going right into a charter program. So we start out differently. We start out thinking about a personal voyaging boat and a performance voyaging boat, and we don't really anticipate anybody buying our boat to put it in charter. I wouldn't frankly want to see this boat in charter. It's too quality, too performance. It's not a charter boat. And so and there aren't many places left where you have reasonable labor rates and overhead costs, right? And the skill sets,
The combination.
Guys like John, they don't come along very often, right? And it takes a lifetime to get that kind of skill set. The thing that's really neat about his factory is that there's 45 workers, but they really are a family. They're not screaming at each other. They support each other. They're working together, and they have a good time. They really have a good time. Now, some of the guys, run off to go surfing when the waves are up from time to time, and he'll give them a little slack because he's a surfer. And if it's too good to believe they're going to go surfing, it's okay.
Yeah, that's not too bad. It's if I sit back and actually think about it, the key guys, we actually are lifetime friends. The guy that does all the little handrails that you see on this boat, we've been friends for 50 years. And he's built my surfboards, and somehow we've drifted away and gone around the world, and we're back together. The guy that's running the factory while I'm not there, Andrew, we've been friends forever. We grew up together. The owner of the company and the factory that we work in has lived next door. We've grown up together. Our secretary tries to run all the finances. We've grown up together. So it's actually amazing what is going on there. Max, who runs it while I'm not there, we've been friends for forever. So it is quite something where you actually stop for a minute and think what's going on. And you battle and you scream and shout at each other, but there's an understanding. There's always a smile when it's finished. And for me, when I first went there was an empty factory. You kind of hear yourself in it. Guys came a while ago and said, "Jesus, you filled the place up, and you've got quite something going on here." And I've taught them all. All the coloured guys, the native guys that are working there have come, and I've taught them side by side. I stand.
And is it a fairly stable, loyal force, or is there much turnover?
It has been. When we sort of built our big 60-footer, that's how we started, because it was my brother's dream to build a boat, and then we had to tone down because there wasn't many orders in the boating industry. Went through the slump of
a recession.
Really a recession in the boating, and then we connected with Phil and we worked that one up again, and then this came along, so we had to let a lot of guys go, but they were always waiting in the wings to come back. John, when can I come back? I said, well, when I've got orders and I can afford it. I'll never promise them anything, because I'm the guy, if I've got 10 Rand, I'll give it to you and I don't want it back. So I never promise anybody, but I teach them, and a lot of them have come back. They've even left their jobs to come back and work with me, because we have a lot of fun. You must always laugh, chin up. There's going to be down days. There's going to be things. I can even see my guys when they're walking. I just say, "What's wrong? What's the problem?" That's wrong. I say, "Okay, I can see. I've been around long enough now. As they call him a near, And they call me in their language a Matala. He's the old guy. They always say, "Matala, come here. I've got a problem." So It is fun, you know, and I'm not the guy that sits in the office, you know, I'm up and down, I'm always
He's on
here
the
for
floor,
them.
yeah. Whenever I call, I say, "Can I talk to Johnny?" And
I'm
Rogers
never-
always
sitting
says,
by the phone,
"No,
like,
he's
no,
down.
no,
He's
no.
down on the floor. He's down on the floor."
And I'm right in there, and because I want to teach them. My big concern right now is slowly to replace me. I need someone to so when I'm not there, she's still going. And I can come out and see the guys and see the clients and just see that the boat is right. Like right now, I look around the boat and just subtle ways I'm looking how to make it better, how to improve stuff. I talk to Anton all the time, and it's a good connection, you know. And if you've got that, you're going to get a winner. I mean, even when we started to design the boat, I kind of knew what Phil wanted, and I sat with Anton. This, and I come with a surfing background, a bit of this, and leave him to do it. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to open his computer, but you get the basics, and then they make it all right. It's amazing. They put a net around, they pull it and push it, and so you get beautiful lines.
Yeah.
And this is where we are.
What
right
other
now.
series production boats have you done at the yard?
Well, we've done our big 60s, which is a balance 60. I don't know exactly how long it is meters, but we've done that. We did 3 or 4 of those, and then now we're into the balance
The
project.
number
you
one
know.
60 was in the World of Arc, and he stopped to visit the factory and came all the way back, you know, to St. Francis. And you know, I don't know if you know this story, but I was with Russ, and it's very touching to me. Actually,
Russ is the owner?
Yeah, Russ Owen. He sailed the boat around the world, and he came into St. Francis, and Johnny came out, and they got on the boat, and Johnny said to Russ, "Do you mind if I take her back into St. Francis one more time?" And he got up in the helm, and he said, I looked at him, and he was teary-eyed because he was so proud that his boat had circumnavigated. And you know, there's a lot of pride.
That's a thing.
These guys have a lot of pride in their build, and it's really quite cool. And the Owens took them all out to a Thanksgiving. They made a Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, they had a great time. Yeah. No, that was. I don't get like that, but that was
nice.
a moment. I drove it in the harbour, and it was like, is this really happening?
Yep.
It was quite something.
Now, boat building cultural question, why are there so many catamarans coming out of South Africa?
I think you'd probably say it's contributing to the Robertson and Kane story, but a couple of years back I spoke to some guys who work at Central Boating, friends of mine there too, and quietly before the recession, it was
which was when here? Is that
when
still
was that,
2009,
Phil?
2010?
When we started,
2008
the big
is
world,
when it
hit. Beginning,
the big
Prior
slowdown.
to 2008.
Yeah, the big slowdown.
Yeah.
And Cape Town was pumping out over 100 and something odd boats a year. No one even knew, you know. The Sky was doing 4, they were doing 50, and Voyage was doing 11. And you calculate that, and that's it. And I think it's Robinson and Kane that got it going and got involved with Marine and the Maroons and what. I mean, Robinson and Kane, the Kane is Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Kane
was Jerry,
is me. On type of guy. Jerry was the guy on the floor, make sure you don't grind it, you trim it with a knife and keep it clean. And John Robinson was more the business guy. And I mean, we like this, we know each other. I mean, we do the August Cycle Tour, which I've done 25 times already. And John Robinson got into biking, and so did Jerry, you know. And we saw race the August Tour. And so it's really a big family, even if, you know, John would come down and we'd chat. And Phil Harvey and myself talk. We go back when he started, you know, building boats and repairing boats in the harbour. So as you said, we all know each other, and it's really, you know, don't kid anybody. We all there, and we all talk to each other. We all admire each other's stuff, you know, which is great.
Yeah.
Certainly been a lot of fun for me working with these guys. I mean, when I walked up and saw this boat for the first time last week. Well, they came motoring in with the mast wasn't on yet, and it was blowing, and this big, beautiful blue boat comes in, and the lines just look so pleasing. I was just so excited. And then I walked on the boat and says, wow, these guys, they really, really, really did a great job. The problem is, you know, when you go to the factory and you're looking at it, it's under construction, you can't feel, you know. It's not until the day it actually is launched that all the plastic comes off, and